Thank you. I'm excited to be here tonight. My name is Aimee Goodwin. I'm here to share my success story because I feel like that is really important. And I feel like success stories are not the noise often that is made in the Lyme world. And unfortunately, there's a lot of negative things that we hear, and because Lyme is such a beast and so hard for all of us, if you're here tonight, it's affected your life in some way, and so you know that. I don't need to tell you that. So I'm here tonight because I want people to know a couple of things. And the first thing I want you to know is that there's life after Lyme. I'm proof of that. I see that often. It's not just me. People recover from Lyme, and I want you to know that. That's one of my main things. So I'm just going to start with my story because that's really the only thing that people really want to hear anyways, right? When people hear that I've had Lyme and that I'm well again, the first thing they want to know is how that happened. How are you well? So I first became sick in 2005. I was a young mother. I had still a mother, I was just younger then. I have 4 boys, and they were all young at the time when I got sick. My youngest was a baby. I had just had him a year prior to when I became sick. I had just had a baby that was a year old. I was in that mode of going to the gym and trying to get back in shape from having my kids. I knew I was done having kids, so I didn't have any more excuses, and I was back at the gym, and I was working really hard, and I was feeling really healthy. I was feeling really good. I was the lowest in weight that I'd ever been since I started having kids. I was feeling strong, was exercising 4 days a week. I had tons of energy. I just felt like my life was under control, and even though, I had this new baby and all these crazy kids, I was keeping up with these boys, and I loved my life. I loved my life. And one night I was at the gym, and I often worked out late at night because I had little kids, and so my husband I'd put the kids to bed or whatever, he'd be at home holding the fort down, and I would go to the gym late at night. So I'd have the gym to myself. One night I was at the gym working out, normal day, it was a normal day, normal night, and I was on the elliptical, and when I got off the elliptical, I had like this weird feeling in my right knee. And it wasn't anything I'd ever felt before. I was an athlete in high school. I was a good athlete in high school. I worked hard. I knew what it was like to, really push your body to the limits as an athlete. I'd had injuries, and things like that. And this was nothing that I'd ever really experienced. It was a strange thing, and it was just a weird, you kind of felt like you just shake that. It was like a tremor in my knee. And so I just thought I must have tweaked something, this was weird, and I just kind of got off the treadmill or the elliptical, and I just was walking around this empty gym. And from that point until the point that I was so sick that I had to cancel my gym membership was 8 weeks. So I progressed from that point very quickly. I went from being this healthy, energetic young mom to being very sick. I had all of a sudden I wasn't able to keep up with my babies. I wasn't able to chase them up and down the stairs, or my energy just dropped through the floor. I had no energy. I started that weird feeling in my knee, became a muscle spasm type feeling that would go from my ankle down the front of my knee to my ankle, and it was just a constant, spasm in my muscle. I started also it started in my feet. I started with this really weird feeling. It was a vibrating feeling. I tell people, have you ever sat on a four-wheeler or a motorcycle? That's, how you get that vibrating feeling? I had that feeling in my feet. It was the strangest thing. It started in my feet, and it crawled up over a very short amount of time, a few weeks, crawled up my legs, into my knees, into my thighs, and pretty soon it was in my chest, it was in my hands, it was in my arms, it was in my face, it was on my scalp, and it never went away. Not a doctor in 5 years could touch that symptom. And it was the worst symptom. It was the worst symptom because it made me feel like I could never rest. I could never rest because my body was doing this all the time. It was vibrating all the time. So I'm a pretty stubborn individual. And my husband's here, so he can attest to that. And I'm a control freak too. I like to control what I can in my environment. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was out of control. Things were happening in my body that I could not control. And it scared me a little bit, but I was pretty determined to just get through it, whatever it was. I was just tired. I was overdoing it. I had all these kids, and I started making all the excuses that we make for ourselves. My mother is a nurse, and I don't know if any of you guys are in the medical field. Anybody here in the medical field? Well, anybody here have a mother who's a nurse or a parent? Okay, then you're gonna know what I'm talking about here. So I feel like parents, when we have parents that are in the medical field, you gather a little bit of medical knowledge yourself. Because people are always calling your moms or your dads and saying, what should I do about this? And you're hearing, you're listening. Children are really observant. And so I say we all have this like little medical chest of inexperienced medical things of knowledge. And so if you grow up with that in your family, you have that. And so because of that, I always say I knew enough to just scare myself, So I knew that these symptoms that I was having, they needed to be checked out. But I fought that for quite a while. Soon it was to the point that I was not able to keep up with my life. I couldn't do the things that I could easily do before. Cooking dinner would kill me to stand on my feet. Getting out of bed in the morning was ridiculously horrible. I felt like my body was turning to stone. I felt like I was stiff all the time. I would set my alarm in the morning for a good 15 minutes before I actually had to get out of bed, because it took me that long to build myself up mentally. It hurt that bad to get out of bed and step on the floor. My feet hurt that bad. So very quickly, pain became a real companion in my life. I had severe joint pain. I had severe nerve pain. And it was horrible. It was really horrible. So again, this happened very quickly. In a matter of 8 weeks, I was finally picking up the phone to call that doctor. And so I went to my very first doctor appointment. Just to a regular family practice MD, and they decided to do all the tests that I'm sure you all are familiar with. They do all the scary tests, for ALS and for MS and for all these neurological diseases and brain tumors and stuff like that, because that's how sick I was. And I was really scared about that. I was scared about that. I had little kids again. I have these little kids, and what's going to happen to me if I have MS? What's going to happen to my kids if I have Lou Gehrig's disease? And so there was that anxiety. So I often say that that was my first appointment and my first tests in the walk of 1,000 tests. And you all know exactly what that's like as well. I went back to see that doctor with great anxiety, not knowing what I was going to hear. And what I heard was, everything is normal. You're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. I'm going to send you to rheumatology. So, and I'm from Alexandria. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Alexandria, but we, at the time, didn't have a whole lot of our own specialty doctors there, so all this was travel, So they sent me to Fargo to rheumatology, and my rheumatologist, or the doctor that I saw there for rheumatology, literally walked in the room, asked me to hold his hands. He had me clench his hands. He had me bend over and touch the floor. He was literally in the room for about 90 seconds. And he looked at me and said, this is not anything I can help you with. This is not arthritic. You do not have arthritis, whatever. And he's like, I can't help you. You need to see neurology. So I was like, okay, after 4 hours in the car there and back. So we went off to neurology. And that was, again, an array of testing and unpleasant tests, some of them. Actually, I really liked him, and he was one of the few doctors that I saw that said to me, I don't know what's wrong with you, but when you find out what's wrong with you, come back. Because he said, I know something is wrong with you. I don't know what is wrong with you, which was a welcome. Some doctors, over the course of the next years, I was accused of drug seeking. I was accused of being crazy. I was accused of, all sorts of different things in my course of just trying to get better. And I appreciated it when a doctor would say to me, you know what, I don't know what's wrong with you, but what I know something is wrong with you. And at least, you get that kind of clarification. So that started, he said, you need to see pain management. You need to manage this pain. And I was like, again, stubborn. I'm like, no, I don't need pain management. I do not need pain pills. I'm going to be fine. This is nothing. I'm fine. All my tests are fine. I'd never heard of Lyme disease. I had no idea what Lyme disease was. And so I tried to tough it out. And I started going through Motrin and Tylenol like it was candy. And it didn't help me. It didn't touch it. I would have pain that was so exhausting that I would put my kids on the bus in the morning and I would go to bed. And when they get off the bus, I'd get out of bed. And it was bad. It was really bad. I used to get pains where I would get a stabbing pain. I had nerve pain where it literally felt like something was stabbing me. Like literally, I would be like, ah. And my husband told me once that when I was lucky enough to sleep, he would tell me that I would moan. I would just moan in my sleep because I was hurting even in my sleep and I wasn't resting. My skin became very sensitive. I couldn't sleep with cotton sheets. I had to get the fuzzy blankets, and I would make, my husband called it a cocoon, and I had my fuzzy blanket and I wrapped it around me and then I put my blankets over the top of that. I couldn't stand to wear anything that was any kind of stiffness in my clothing. It hurt my skin to do that. My eyes became very sensitive. I had to wear sunglasses everywhere I went. I had friends that would tease me that I was trying to be a famous, hiding person because I wore them to Target. I wore them, everywhere because it hurt my eyes. If I would have been standing here with these lights on me, I would have needed glasses. It would hurt me to do that. So eventually I did end up in pain management because that is what I needed. If I couldn't find out what was wrong with me, I needed help managing my pain. So I ended up in pain management and I ended up with Vicodin because that's how I made it through my day. I ended up on a drug called Lyrica, and that also helped with my pain. But if you're on it, be very careful how you go off of that, and we'll get into that later. But that was the only relief I had. It did help me manage my pain, that along with, managing my symptoms, managing what I could do in my life. If I had an event with my kids or if we were going to go fishing or hunting or something, I had to plan my life around that. And as you know, when you are chronically sick, when you're in chronic pain, every step is counted. Every step. If you have to do this, you know that you are not going to be able to do this later. If you do this, it would take me days to recover from doing this. I'm a hunter again, as I said before. I have 4 sons, and it's a big tradition in our family, and I've romped every riverbank in Todd County. I have been through every woods. I've been on every lake. And I love it. Like, that's what I love to do. I always said when I had 4 boys, that was the best thing God gave me was 4 boys, because I love doing all that stuff. I couldn't do all of that stuff very well anymore, and I couldn't play baseball with my kids anymore. I couldn't hit a bat. I couldn't hold a ball and hit a bat. It sent such a pain through my hands and my elbows. I couldn't play catch. My son was a pitcher, and if I was playing catch with him and he'd smack that mitt too hard, it was excruciating. So those are the little things that Lyme took away from me. They were the little things, but they were the big things that Lyme takes away from us. And those are things you don't get back. And so that's a tragedy. So that's where I was, and that's what my life was for 5 years. For 5 years, I went undiagnosed, and for 5 years, I took Vicodin to manage my pain. And for 5 years, I stopped doing a lot of things that I love to do. I was a singer as well, and I lost the ability to control the muscles in my throat. I was no longer able to sing, and that was a big loss. It was a big loss. I'm a writer, and I was starting to lose that connection between my brain and my hands. So you know how you have that normal feeling of, we've all written our names since kindergarten, and you just don't even think about it, you scribble it onto a check or whatever you're doing. I couldn't do that anymore. When I was writing my name, I had to think about how to write my name. I had to think about, okay, this is how I make an A, this is how I connect it to an I, and to an M, and to an E, and that was where I was at. So it was a challenge, and that was my life. So I wasn't happy about that. I didn't want that life, and that is what Lyme does to us. It takes away the lives that we love, and it gives us a life that we don't want. We don't want it. And that's where I was. So one day, a big turning point for me in my story was my mother, like I said before, is a nurse. And she was on her way to work one day listening to the local radio station, and there was a woman on that station who was advocating for Lyme. And she was spreading awareness, and she was telling her story like I'm telling my story right now. And my mom was just completely inspired, I believe, to just listen to the station. She said she just happened to flip it on. As soon as she got to work, she was so excited, she called me as soon as she got to work. And my mom, you know the voice, and she's like, and I was tired. I just gotten my kids off to school. It was crappy weather, so I felt even worse than normal. And my youngest was sitting in front of the TVs watching Dora the Explorer. And I had settled in on the couch and was just kind of listening to Dora the Explorer, and the phone rang. It was my mom, and I answered the phone, and she's like all excited. She's like, Aimee, I just heard this speaker, and blah, 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 and she goes off, and she's like, you have to check this out. You have to check it out. And by this time, you guys, I had been to so many doctors. And no one could help me. Nobody could help me. Everybody said I needed mental health. I even had a doctor tell me I was so depressed, I didn't even know I was depressed. That's how depressed I was. And I said to him, you know what? If I wasn't depressed before this started, I'm gonna be by the time it's done, because I am gonna be. And so I was feeling down, and my mom had just had all this excitement, and I was like, okay, Mom, all right, I'll check it out, whatever. And she said before she hung up the phone, she said, Aimee, you have to check this out. These people are you. These people are you. And I was like, okay. And I hung up the phone, and I just sat there for a few minutes, and I was just kind of done with the whole thing, and I just sort of resigned myself to that fact that this was my new life. But those words stuck with me, and I kept hearing her say it in my head over and over again. These people are you. And that got my attention, because I didn't know anyone else like me. I didn't know anyone else who was sick like I was sick. And so I was like, well, I'm going to check it out. So she gave me the website, or she gave me the name of the documentary, Under Our Skin. So I went to my computer and I typed that into Google. And from there, my world changed. My world just opened up, and I was like a starving person, eating for the first time in months. I stared at that computer with my face right up to it, and I watched one story after another, and I read about these people, and I watched that documentary, and I cried like a baby, because I am these people. These are my people. I do have Lyme disease. I knew it to the core of who I am, and I cried. And I called my husband at work, and I was like, I know what's wrong with me. I know what's wrong with me. And he was like, oh, great, what is it now? And I said, I have Lyme. I think I have Lyme disease. This makes perfect sense. I'm outdoors all the time. We have ticks all the time. And I think I have Lyme. And he was like, all right, okay, we have Lyme. Yay, we have Lyme. So go to the doctor. What do you have to do? So I knew from my research that it was going to be a little bit difficult. That's what I thought in my mind, that it would be a little bit difficult. But I was going to go to the doctor, and I was going to get treated. I was going to get better. Like, for the first time in 5 years, I had hope that I was going to get better. So I make my doctor's appointment. I go in to the doctor, and actually it was a new doctor who didn't know me very well, because my doctor had moved. And I went in and I said, I think I have Lyme disease. Can you please test me for Lyme? And they laughed at me, and they were like, why do you think you have Lyme? And I'm like, because I'm sick. Look at my medical chart, and I have all these symptoms, and these are the symptoms of Lyme. And I watched this documentary, and I really think this is wrong. Can you just test me? Will you please just test me? And they refused to test me. And so we got into a fight. I'm a little spunky, and we got into a fight, a verbal fight. I didn't hit anybody or anything, but, in the end, she said, you can't just look online and diagnose yourself with things. And I was like, I know, you can't. And I agree, it's not a good thing to do, but here's the thing. I've seen so many doctors nobody can help me. And this is something that I think I need to check out. So in the end, they made me sign a paper saying how irresponsible it was to do the test. So if my insurance company deemed that it was irresponsible and they wouldn't pay for it, that I would pay for it. I was like, I don't care, I'll sign the stupid paper. So I did sign the paper, and my insurance company did cover it, by the way. So it was just an ordeal. So they did test me, but it came back negative. And so I was like, okay, well, can we check it again? And I just was so desperate for that diagnosis. So in the meantime, this went on for about a year. So once I decided that I probably had Lyme, it went on for about a year. And I continued to go to different doctors. I went with my own, finally, I had established myself with a doctor. I went to her. We tested, we did everything that we knew how to do, which wasn't much because none of the doctors I was seeing were literate in Lyme. Finally, I was just so frustrated and discouraged. My husband, he's a saint, and through my whole Lyme thing and through my whole treatment, he deserves sainthood. I will just say that. He picks up the slack when I couldn't do it, and he was such a cheerleader and a support. And he finally said, we need to find the doctor that knows about Lyme. Like, this is not working. And every time you see a doctor, you get your hopes up, you crash back down. And I had sort of gotten to the point where I was just despondent. I was like, I don't, even if it's Lyme, nobody's here that can help me. Nobody's going to treat me. And so I just kind of decided, I don't know what I'm going to do. I had talked with my doctor, who was wonderful, and she's still one of my doctors. And she was actually turned out to be a doctor that helped me with my Lyme treatment along the way because my doctor's in California. She called me one day out of the blue, and she had tested me. She had done some test. I don't know what it was. And it had been months before, or a couple weeks before, and she called me, and she called to tell me the results of these tests, and she's like, Aimee, so my original diagnosis was fibromyalgia. That's my pain specialist gave me. He said to me, I don't think you have Lyme, but, I don't think you have fibromyalgia, but I have to give you a diagnosis or I can't help you with your pain. So that was my diagnosis, as fibromyalgia. So this doctor that called me, she said, this does not fit with fibromyalgia. You are young, you were healthy, this just doesn't fit. And she's like, I know you're frustrated. And she had no idea where I was at mentally. She said, I know you're frustrated. And I was very frustrated. And she said, but you cannot quit. You cannot quit. You have to keep looking because you're going to find whatever it is that is going to help you. Don't quit. And she couldn't have known how horribly bad I needed to hear that. And so I talked to my husband, and he said, okay, we're done with doctors here. I want you to find the doctor, and we will travel. We'll go to the doctor that's going to help you. So I started to do my research, and I landed on Dr. Harris, who is out of California, Dr. Stephen Harris. I just landed on him because he had done a bunch of published work, and he was very loud in the Lyme world. And he was having a really good success with his treatment. And he was an ILADS trained doctor, which is really important to me as well. And so we bought plane tickets and went out to see Dr. Harris. And at my very first appointment with Dr. Harris, after seeing 1 million doctors, and you all know what that's like, I sat down in front of a doctor who had my medical folder that was this thick, and I'm not exaggerating. It was this thick. And they paged through every page of that medical file, every page. And I finally had somebody who was listening to me. Like, they were looking at me when I was talking to them. They were asking me questions. They were listening to me. They were verifying that I'm not a crazy person, that yes, we believe this is happening to you. So it was like an experience like I had not had. It was an amazing thing. And it wasn't like, I didn't go out to like a big clinic. Like, his entire office is probably half the size of this room. And when we first got there, I was like, but it was amazing. It was just amazing. He was paging through my file, and he got to a page, and he stopped, and he said, anybody talk to you about this? And I was like, what is it? And he said, this is a Western blot Lyme test. It was at my very first doctor's appointment when I got sick, the very beginning. I said, I've always been told my Lyme tests were negative. And he said, this is a positive test. Yes. positive test 6 years before. And that is one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about who you see for a doctor. So I tested positive for for Babesia in that test, and I had 4 bars lit up for Lyme disease. It was read incorrectly. Had it been read correctly, I would have not suffered like I did, nor would I be standing here today, which is why I think it was read incorrectly. So I have to justify that to myself a little bit because it's a hard road. So that started my treatment journey with Dr. Harris. Dr. Harris saved my life. There's no doubt about it. He saved my life. I don't think I would be here if I wouldn't have found him. I don't think I would, if I was here, I don't think I would be in very good shape. By the time I went to see Dr. Harris, I was in such horrible pain I couldn't stand to be in my own skin. I was dragging a leg. When I was walking, I couldn't control my leg. I would drag it about every 4th step. It would drag and I would trip and stuff like that. I couldn't grip anything. I felt like my hands were stone, and I was absolutely and 100% controlled by pain. And I was losing my ability to even speak. I'd already lost my ability to sing, and I was starting to even lose that ability as well. So I was in really rough shape by the time I found him. And he saved my life, and that's all there is to it. So my treatment with Dr. Harris, and I should say like a little blurb here, because people are very curious about, as I'm sure you are, how I got well and how I went about doing that. I want to say I'm not promoting my treatment and what I did. What I did might not work for you. The medicines I took worked for me. They might not work for you. The herbs that I took worked for me. They might not work for you. So I do just want to say that, just as for your, for my own peace of mind. So Dr. Harris started me off with herbals, just to cleanse my body, prepare my body for what was coming. I was very adamant that I didn't want to do any kind of IV therapy. I'd read that. And I was nervous about the antibiotics, but I was ready. I didn't care what I had to do. I knew that Lyme was killing me. I knew it was killing me. I was afraid I was going to die before we knew what was wrong with me. So I was ready to do just about anything. So we prepared my body. We went forward with treatment. We started with the antibiotics, and I did that orally for about 6 months before my stomach just couldn't tolerate it anymore. It just got to be really rough on my stomach. I wasn't absorbing anything. Dr. Harris said, it's time for that IV. And I was like, is there anything else we can do? I just wasn't crazy about, going up in, no, I just wasn't. And he's like, we can do injections for a while if you want to do injections. And I was like, all right, yeah, we can do injections. So my husband, once again, was trained in how to do them because they were in my behind and I couldn't do them in my behind. So he got trained while we were down there how to give me the injections, and we started on that path, and we did an injection every other day of Rocephin. And of course, I was on all of the good probiotics and stuff that I needed for my belly, always. He was very good about that and adamant about that. And so once we started doing that, we noticed a huge jump in my health. It was symptoms just really started to deteriorate, and my health, I was getting stronger. They were disappearing. I didn't have, the level of pain I had. I wasn't taking as much Vicodin. I wasn't, I was getting better. And it was awesome. My butt, on the other hand, started to look like a really deformed pincushion, and it became so horrible to even try to sleep on it. I had to sleep, because we would rotate a butt cheek every time. We even started to do them in my legs just to give my backside a break, and it became, very difficult. And after months of it, he finally said, "We're done with this now too. Now it is time for," and so I was like, yes, it's time. So the thing I was worried about was finding a doctor that would put a PICC line in for Lyme disease. I was afraid of that. There was no Lyme doctors by me. There was no surgeons who were literate in Lyme, and I was afraid of that. And he said, well, if we can't find somebody, you'll have to come back out here, and we'll have to do it here. So I went to a surgeon that I knew a little bit from, I'd had a gallbladder surgery years before, and I wanted him to put my PICC line in, and he wouldn't do it. we had a really interesting conversation that I think we all need to have with our medical field people. But I went to see him and I asked him, I told him the situation and I said, this is why I need this PICC line. And he's like, yeah, is this doctor even a real doctor? And I was like, yeah, he actually is a really good doctor. And he's like, is he treating you over the phone or are you actually going to see him? And he was really condescending to me. And I was like, you know what, I'm done here. I'm not doing this and I'll go somewhere else. He actually called me and wanted me to come back in a couple days later. His nurse called me. And I was like, no, I don't need to come in. I'm not going to have him do my PICC line. And she's like, he really wants to see you again. And I was like, all right. So I said, okay, fine, I'm coming in. And I was ready to battle. I was like, if he wants to fight about this, we're going to fight about it. And when I got in there, his attitude was completely different. And he said, so tell me again what's going on with you. And so I told him again. And he said, and you're seeing Dr. Harris and you're getting better. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, I want you to know that I can't do your PICC line. But he said, and I think that this treatment, and I just looked at him and I said, is too much antibiotics for too long of a time. And he said, yes. And I said, I agree with you. It is too much antibiotics, and it is for too long of a time. And you know how I know that? Because I've been doing it. And I said, and if there was another way, he looked at me, he said, you would do it. And I said, yes, I would. But I said, right now, he said, and then he said, there isn't one. And I said, that's right. And he said, I can't do your PICC line, but I hope you find somebody who can do it. And I left the office that day with a completely different attitude than I thought I was going to leave the office with that day. And that was an important conversation. That was a surgeon who had taken the time to probably look up my doctor and to then probably go read my medical file. And then he probably thought, you know what, this woman that I saw in this office, she's not the woman in this medical file anymore. I was way better by that time. So some education happened there, and something that will probably be in his mind for a while, and maybe someday that'll make a difference. And that was something that was really positive. I ended up finding a doctor to put my PICC line in. He was a friend of my mother's who was a nurse. And she talked to him and said, hey, this is the situation. And he said, bring her in, I'll do it. So he put a PICC line in for me. And once we started the IV medicine for me, it was like, a couple of things happened. I started to herx like I had never herxed before, because finally that medicine was really powerful. We were hitting me with several different antibiotics through my IVs. And that was one of the things that happened, is I really herxed, like I thought I was gonna die, kind of herxes. But I had some powerful victories. I started to really heal. I started to really get rid of some of those symptoms that I'd gotten so well, and I'd gotten to this point, and then I just felt like, my body was tired and wasn't absorbing like I should, and blah, blah, blah. But now that we were doing this intravenous medicine for me, that was a game changer. And so I did IV therapy for 8 months, and I went off the IV therapy after 8 months, and that had its own struggles through there. And if any of you have been through IV therapy, you know what that was. One of the biggest things I noticed, and my mother or my husband, I can't remember, somebody pointed this out to me, I think it was my mom, I became so impatient with my IV medicine, because I had to lay in bed and do because you have to have your arm, you can't be like walking around, and so you have the little balls and they come in the mail and you hook yourself up and whatever. And so I was doing 2 IVs a day, 2 or 3 IVs a day, so I was in bed for 3 or 4 hours a day, which drove me bananas. I hated being in bed for 3 or 4 hours a day. It was difficult. It was kind of depressing, because I was getting better, I felt better, but here I was still tied to my bed. So I started, like opening my curtains. It was springtime. I let the sun shine in when the kids were gone, and I really had to try to do things mentally to keep myself up, because I was to the point where I wanted to be better. I was so close. I wanted to be just done with this. I wanted to be better. And that, you have to still be patient in your treatment. You still have to be kind to yourself, because your body's working so hard. For me, that was a huge victory. In the course of that time, one of the doctors that worked with Dr. Harris, all of my symptoms were gone, except for my foot pain. I had still a little bit of foot pain and a little bit of hand pain. And he said, I think you didn't test positive for Bartonella, but I think that you have Bartonella. And let's just throw this antibiotic in there and see if what happens. We'll know right away if this is it or not. And that was it. Rifampin was the drug that clinched it up for me. And after that, it was very quick. My healing was very quick. My symptoms just disappeared. And I was free. I was free. So to go off of all of that, my doctor warned me. He was brilliant. Dr. Harris has a biochemical background, I believe. And he had this innate ability to be able to tell me what my body was going to do before it even happened. He'd say, this antibiotic is going to probably do this to you or this. And he was right. He was always right every time. He told me that not to be disappointed. He said, we're going to pull you off of everything. Don't be disappointed if, something comes back. That happens. It happens sometimes because we've killed off all the easy stuff, and there's still sometimes stuff hiding deeper, and that will come out. It'll come out because it's safe. So don't be disappointed. So I was like, that's not going to happen to me. I'm done now. It's all good. Don't worry, Dr. Harris. It's all good. But no, that 3 times we had to pulse. 3 times I would go off, and 3 times my symptoms came back within a couple weeks, just a few little things. And so we'd hit it again, and we'd hit it again. And finally, after the 3rd time, nothing came back. I was nervous about it because I kept thinking, maybe it's going to come back. Maybe this is a fluke. I don't know. But pretty soon, I was a week symptom-free. Pretty soon, I was 2 weeks symptom-free. Pretty soon, I was a month. Pretty soon, I was 2 months. Pretty soon, I was 6 months. Pretty soon, I was a year. And now I'm 5 years Lyme-free. So it was an incredible, beastly disease. And I'm glad that it is behind me. I believe that I'm cured. My doctor believes that I'm cured. And I know that there's varying opinions on that. And I will never debate that with people because people have their opinions and they are strong about them. I'm strong about my opinion because I went through it and I know what I experienced and what I'm experiencing now. I am not alone in that opinion. Many doctors will say that if you treat Lyme correctly, you can be cured. And on the flip side, there are other doctors who say that you cannot be cured, that you just go into remission. And what I say to that is, either way, we can agree that Lyme does not have to control your life anymore. Okay, we can agree on that. If you can put Lyme into remission, then it's not controlling you. You're controlling Lyme. And that is what Lyme does. It controls you. It takes over your life, right? That's what it did to me. It took over my life. Again, it gave me a life I didn't want. So anything we can do to control our lives is empowering. When you feel like your life is out of control and everything in your body is out of control, that's empowering. So we can at least agree that Lyme doesn't have to control you anymore. So that is my victory story. That's my victory story, minus a lot of the guts and bloody stuff that I didn't talk about, because I could go on for... Somebody said to me when they read my book, that's a friend of mine, you didn't even really talk about all of the really horrible stuff. And I said, I could have gone on for 500 pages on the miseries of Lyme disease. But who wants to read that? Nobody wants to read that. So, and if you're all here tonight, most of you, if you have Lyme, or if you're watching somebody's Lyme, you know what those miseries are. So that is my victory story. And I think it's so important for people to hear it, to know that there's hope and that there's life after Lyme. There's hope of getting better. So at my very last doctor appointment, Dr. Harris, I was to the point where I was starting to talk to people about Lyme a little bit. My local paper, I don't even know how they heard about me or whatever, but it was Lyme month, and they had heard somehow that I was somebody who was treating for Lyme. And so they called me and they did an article on my story. They did my story. And they published that in the paper. And it was really crazy, you guys. People came out of the woodwork after that. Like, I literally, when I went to my very first doctor's appointment, Dr. Harris asked me if I knew anyone else who had Lyme disease. And I said, no, I don't. I've never heard of Lyme disease until my mom heard this radio. I didn't know what Lyme was. And he said, which was one of the most prophetic things that he said, by the time you are done with your treatment, you are going to know a lot of people with Lyme disease. He said, that is how quickly it's growing and how quickly it's spreading. And by the time you're done, you are going to know a lot of people with Lyme. He could not have known how true that was. So once this paper was published, people called me, and I was still doing treatment when this happened. People came out of the woodwork. They called me from, different countries. I had people calling me from different countries and different states, all over the United States, all over in my area. And I started, it took over my life, like literally took over my life. That's what I did when I was like, yeah, oh yeah, I have that too. Yeah, that was what I did when I was getting my IVs. Pretty soon it got to the point where I was like, oh, so-and-so, they need to talk to so-and-so, and this person, they need to talk to this person, and these people, they need to talk to these people. And so I got the idea to start a support group. I'm like, we need a support group. There's nobody around here that has a support group, and nobody's heard of a support group around here, and we need to start this. So I'm like, I say to my husband, honey, I think I'm going to start a support group for Lyme disease. And he's like, okay, are you up to that? Or you think that's a good idea? And go you. So always supportive of my crazy ventures. So I started a support group, and at our first support group, we had like 26 people show up to our very first support group. That was back in 2012. And we're still going strong in Alexandria with our Central Lyme Disease Support Group area there. And we have, it's crazy the amount of people we have. If we're doing a special event, we have 60 people that will show up for us. Or, and it varies. Some nights we have 10 people there. Some nights we have 25 people there. But what I love about the support group, I've learned so much, you guys. I wish a million times that I'd had a support group like that when I was going through Lyme. Because what happens when you walk into a room of people that understand you before you even open your mouth? You're understood before you even speak. You walk in that room and there's no judgment. There's no one who doesn't understand you. There's nobody's going to call you crazy. There's nobody who's going to tell you that you're so depressed you don't even know you're depressed. All you're going to find there is people that understand you. And I loved that. I love it. It's something I became really passionate about. And it's something I put a lot of time into my life into now. In our group, we do a ton of awareness, and these events, they fuel you. We do fairs and we do parades, and we are out there constantly yelling about Lyme disease, and a lot of really, really good things have happened in our area because of it. So during the course of the support group, I did this. I started going around and telling my story over and over again to people in different groups. And somebody said to me, you really need to write your story. And I was like, and I've always been a writer, but I've never been a published writer. And well, that's not true. I had published a children's book, but so I was like, again, I'm a pretty private person. And you wouldn't know that today anymore to hear me telling my story about Lyme. I'm a very private person. In fact, when I was sick and struggling with Lyme, very few people knew that I was sick. Only those closest to me, and not even all of them knew how sick I was. So I'm like, write my story. You know what? Maybe I should write my story. So I did. I wrote my story. During the course of my Lyme treatment, I had journaled quite a bit. I'm a journaler. I'm a writer. I'm a journaler. So I used a lot of those journal inserts into my book as well. And I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to publish a book about Lyme. And I did it. And the book is, I like to call it a memoir. It's really not, I didn't want to go, like I said, into the miseries too deeply. I do talk about the miseries, but I try not to focus on the miseries. I try to focus on the victories, because that's something I really worked hard to do in my treatment as well. When I was really feeling awful, when I was really feeling like I really need this to be done, I need to be better. You know, my mom, my husband, they were my biggest cheerleaders. My mom would say to me, don't quit, Aimee, you've come so far, don't quit. So I started something in my treatment with myself. I started talking to my body, and I would be like, good job, kidneys, good blood test today. You did good. And you know what, hey, feet, it was a rough day, but you know what, we're doing okay. I would do like an inventory, and I would start talking to my body. I really think that's important in treatment. I really think that mind-body connection is important. That was something I just stumbled on my own, but I would end each night with that victory. I would try to think of something positive. Like I said, good job, kidneys, good job. You had good blood tests today, good job, liver, you're doing good, hang in there, you know. because I was always worried my kidneys or my liver would not handle treatment really well. I converted that into our meetings because sometimes our meetings can get heavy. You know, they get heavy because Lyme is heavy. It's hard. It's really hard. We end every meeting with a victory round. So after we've had, you know, our meetings and we've gotten the heavy out and then we're laughing or whatever, we go around the table and we end with a victory. And no matter what it is, even if the victory is just making it to the meeting tonight, that was the victory. So when I wrote my book, it only seemed right to name it Victory. So the book is named Victory, a Lyme Story, and that is my Lyme story. So I have kind of, let me see, where are we on time here? So I have learned a lot. I've learned a lot since my treatment. I've learned way more. I wished, you know, I could take my brain now, not in a vain, I do not say this in a vain way, but I wished I would have known somebody like myself when I was going through treatment, because I really didn't. I didn't know anybody else with Lyme. So I wished I would have known somebody like me. So that is why when people call me, I always talk to them. When people message me on Facebook, I never don't message somebody back. I always talk to them. I always help where I can. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling to help get somebody through a hard time. It's a good feeling to help somebody get to the right doctor or get on the right path. It's also a really frustrating feeling sometimes because the things that I can do are limited. Unfortunately, there's times where I can't do anything except say, hang in there. Don't quit. Just like my mom said to me, don't quit. Just keep fighting. And when we have those days where all you can do is hang in there, that's what you do. You hang on. And you hang on tight. And you don't quit. You know, I've made a list of things that I have learned from, I literally talked to hundreds of people, you guys. Just yesterday, I talked to somebody from Utah. She called me. She'd seen me on Facebook or something, and she got a hold of me. And she was in a really horrible place. And I was able to tell her what I thought she first of all needed to hear more than anything, is that there's life after Lyme. She was exactly, in fact, our stories were really weirdly similar. And she was where I was when I first was hopeless and didn't know what to do. And I was able to say to her, listen, there's doctors out there that are going to help you. There is treatments out there that are going to make you feel better, and you will be able to chase your children again. You will. And you will be able to go to their piano recitals, and you will play the piano again. You will be able to do this. You will. And it's not hopeless. And that's my other really big message, is that it isn't hopeless, that there is hope. There is always hope. There's always, always hope. And there's always hope for better treatments. There's hope for better testing. And a lot of those things are happening now. And I say over and over again, you are going to want to be here to see it. You're going to want to see it get better. Because I can tell you in the 10 years that I have been in this world, it has changed dramatically. Dramatically, it has changed. Just the state of Minnesota has changed. The help has changed. The support group have changed. They've changed. There's so much more out there that wasn't out there 10 years ago. And in 10 years from now, who knows, you know, where we're going to be. So I want to just share with you guys a little bit of what I've learned, and then we'll do some questions and answers. And I never make myself notes, you guys, but I didn't want to forget anything tonight, so I just made myself some little notes. This also happens to be a book that I'm working on right now, because I think that this is really important. Okay, I'm losing my speaker. I knew that was going to happen. Hang on. Okay. So I've just dubbed this for tonight. And it wasn't easy to just pick 10 things. So we're going to, you know, go around. But I picked 10 things. I narrowed it down to 10 things that I think I have learned over the course of the last 10 years, not just from my own experience, in fact, largely from everyone else's experience that I talk to. And these are 10 things that I think that we can do to thrive in Lyme treatment. Yes, I said thrive in Lyme treatment. And I can honestly tell you there was times during my treatment that I did not feel like that was what was going on with me. I was not thriving. I felt like I was getting my butt kicked from Lyme disease. That's what I felt like. It was interesting, one night I made that connection though, and I think this is really important too. I actually had just started intervening. We'd started our injections, and I was doing, oh my gosh, I was having a herx like I'd never herxed before. I couldn't even lay in bed. I couldn't stand the blankets on me. I couldn't stand the pressure, you know, of what it felt like to lay in bed. So we have what we call a love sack. Do you guys know what a love sack is? It's a huge bean bag. It's like filled with memory foam. And I went out and I laid in that. And this was when the tide changed for me, you guys. And I do want to share this. I kind of forgot to share this before. I went out to lay on that love sack because it felt like I was floating. I feel like those pressure points. And I was in such extreme pain. My herxes were extremely painful because pain was my symptoms, one of my nervous system. And I was laying there, obviously not being able to rest or sleep because I was hurting so badly. Tears just started. I wasn't even crying, but I was in so much pain that tears were just running down my face and filling up my ears. And again, I'm a little spunky, and I got mad. I got really mad. And I suddenly had like this feeling that, because all along, when doctors were testing me, trying to find out what was wrong with my body, I kept saying, it doesn't feel like it's my body. It feels like something is in my body, something is wrong with in my body, but I don't feel like it's something in my body is wrong. Does that make sense? It felt like an invader that was making me sick. And that was the first time, this time when I was laying out in the dark on this love sack, that I had the distinct feeling, almost like a voice in my head say, you are not losing, you are killing it. You're killing it. And from that point, something clicked in me, something switched in me. And I was like, I'm spunky, and I got mad. And I said the words out loud. I said, if you don't like it, then get out. Get out. And I made that connection of, you know what? I know what you are, and I am coming for you. I'm coming, and you better get out. And that was huge, you guys. That was a huge turn in my treatment, because at that point, mentally, it switched for me. Instead of being a victim, instead of being beat up by this disease, I was coming back, and I was going to kick the crap out of something. I don't care what it was, but you're out of here. You're out. And that changed. It changed. My fight changed. My treatment changed. Everything, it just changed once my attitude changed. And that is something I learned from myself, and that is something I've learned from a lot of other people, that once we have that focus in our mind, the fight changes, because your focus changes from yourself being ill to getting what is inside of you out that is making you ill. So, okay, so one of the things, the very first thing that we have to do is accept that your life is going to change. It's going to change a little bit. And that was hard for me because, again, I'm a stubborn person, and it was hard for me to accept that I had a life now that I didn't want. I can tell people now that this is temporary, okay? This is going to be temporary. It's going to be hell. And if you don't think it's going to be hell, then readjust, because it is going to be. It's going to be really hard. So take a few minutes once you get that diagnosis and accept that. Grieve it if you have to. My sister also has Lyme disease. And she was diagnosed after I was diagnosed. And she is actually far sicker than I was. As sick as I was, she's much sicker than I was. And when we found out that she was positive for Lyme, I was like, yeah, she's got Lyme. We know what it is. And I was so excited. And my mom, and we were like, yeah, it's Lyme. And my sister was not excited. And she was like so sad. And she was just so in grief. She just grieved over that. And it took her time. It took her time to get there. And I was so frustrated because I'm the kind of person where I'm like, all right, well, let's go. You know what it is. You know where the doctors are. Let's do it. Let's get rid of it. But she kept telling me, leave me alone. I don't want to talk about this. Just leave me alone. I can't talk about this. She had little kids too. And I was frustrated with her. I was mad at her at the time because I remember thinking, what are you doing? Every second you're waiting. Lyme is taking you over. And she, again, was very sick. But it took her time. And I have learned that. I've learned some patience since then. I've learned that it takes people time. And, you know, we get attached to our diagnoses sometimes. Like, some people are like, no, it's not Lyme, I have fibromyalgia. It's what it is. Because they've looked so hard for what is wrong with them that once they get that diagnosis, they want to hold on to it. And let's face it, nobody wants Lyme. Like, I know hundreds of people with Lyme. Nobody's happy about it. So you need to take time, okay? Take the time. So that's something I've learned. Take the time to accept that. Grieve what is coming, and then prepare yourself for a fight, because it is going to be a fight. And if you think it's not going to be a fight, it will be a fight. I'm here to tell you it will be. So take the time to prepare yourself for that. It's going to be a fight, okay? So accept that. So the next thing that is most important is to find the proper treatment for you. So when I first was done, this is something I've learned. When I was done with my treatment, I was like, everybody has to be treated with antibiotics and herbal medicine. That's the only way to get better. Everyone, this is what you need to do. I've learned since then that that isn't going to work for everybody. If you are somebody who is dead against antibiotic treatment, you aren't going to make it. We will hate every second of it. You'll hate it. People get there eventually, right? Like we all get there eventually. I know a lot of people who have opted to do herbal treatment as long as they possibly can, and in the end, if they need a couple months of antibiotics, they do that. They're more comfortable with that. They're more comfortable with taking the time to do that, and that is okay. So I have learned that the proper treatment and the proper doctors are very important. One of the things Dr. Harris said to me at my last appointment, I was already talking to lots of people, and I was like, what's the number one thing? Like, you're, the best. What's the number one thing that I can tell people? And he said without hesitation, he did not hesitate. He said, you tell everybody you talk to that they need to see an ILADS trained physician. He said, their treatment will be better, it will be easier, and it will be better if they have a doctor who knows what they are doing. Now, I tell everybody I talk to that, and not just because Dr. Harris told me to, but because I have learned that. I have seen it in people's treatment. If they are not with the right doctor, if they are not doing the right treatment for them, it is a difficult, difficult road. So that's that's like number one up on the list: proper treatment, proper doctor. Okay. All right. The second thing is I tell people, find your spiritual higher power, whatever that is. I'm not going to promote any religion while I'm up here. Sorry, but I know who my higher power is. And whoever that is to all of you, you need to find that. That is important. You're going to need it. You're going to need whoever that higher power is. I tell people connect with that, because that spiritual connection is important when your body is being ravished by disease and your spirit is being ravished by disease. It's important to have that higher connection. That is going to pull you through those times of hopelessness, sometimes better than anything else. So, like I said, I'm not promoting your religion, whatever it is or isn't, and whatever your spiritual higher connection is, connect with it. Grab it. You're going to need it. I tell everybody that. Okay, so the next thing I want to say is be in control. This is something I learned as well, and this is something I remind people of all the time. When you have Lyme, there's so much that's out of your control, right? Like, everything was out of my control. Like, even sleeping was out of my control. I couldn't sleep. The simple things of, just the simple task of going to bed, and I was so tired, all I wanted to do was go to bed all day long. As soon as I got up, I wanted to go back to bed. And then I would get to bed at night, and I couldn't sleep. I was hurting so bad I couldn't sleep, or I couldn't, whatever it was, and I couldn't sleep. Even the simple task of sleeping was out of control. Getting what kind of shoes I could wear was out of my control. My feet hurt so bad I couldn't wear certain kinds of shoes. I never in 5 years found a comfortable pair of shoes, and I'm not even exaggerating. So little things like that were completely out of my control. But that is one of the things, again, that Lyme takes away from us. It takes away our control over every little thing. So I tell people, control what you can, okay? Even when your body and your mind feel out of control, there's still things you control. Control what you can. You can control how much you rest. You can control that. You can control what you put in your body. You can control how much water you drink. You can control what probiotics, how much you're taking care of yourself. You can control what food you put in your body. You can control a lot of things, actually. So try to turn the care over the things you can't control over to your doctor or your higher power, and control what you can. So take care of yourself. That's a huge thing, okay? Those are things you can control. And that's one of the biggest things, people who come in to me or talk to me in my support group or on the phone, it's the same for men and women. Men have a harder time coming to support groups. I don't know why, but they have a harder time. Women more want that nurturing. You know, they need that support, and men are slower to reach out for it. Once they come, they're hooked and they want it. But it's hard to get them there. I have a lot of wives that come, and they'll come for months before their husbands come with them. And finally they get them to come. But it's the same. When a man can't do the things he wants to do to support his family, that's an emotional devastation to them. The equivalent of that is for a mother who can't take care of her children or her family. It's the same thing. So recognize those things. Those are things that are out of your control, but you can control some things, okay? So control what you can. Let's see. Support. So that's where I was going with that. Support is huge, you guys, huge. I wish a million times that I had a support group when I was going through Lyme. I've had doctors tell me that they wish that my support group was where they are. They say the people who are in your group, they do better. They do better. And we don't have a support group here in our town. And I've had actually 3 doctors tell me that people who have that support, they do better. The people I've seen in my group who have good family and spouse support, they do better. The ones who don't have the families that believe them or they struggle more emotionally. And when we struggle more emotionally, treatment's harder. If we're dragging through, if we're barely dragging ourselves through, and then we're dealing with people who don't believe us or who think we're, but can't you just get off the couch today? Like what, Then you're dealing with that too. So whatever it is, if you don't have a support group in your area, find those people that support you. I call them cheerleaders. My mom was the best cheerleader in the world. I even wanted to just hang up the phone on her so many times. But she was the best. When I couldn't handle it anymore, when I was like, Mom, I don't know if I'm going to get better. I really don't. Because you do have those times. You have those times where even if you hope you're going to get better, you just get to the point where you're like, I don't think I'm going to get better. I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. You need that person that says, yes, you can. And you go to bed right now, and in the morning you get up, and it's going to be a better day. And you can do it. And when I have those caregivers, I'm so excited that you guys are doing the caregiver meeting, because I have joked about that for years. In our group, we've joked about it, and we've said, we need a support group for our caregivers, because that is a hard job, you guys. It's a hard job. I don't know. My husband said the worst part of watching me go through Lyme was that it was so hopeless that there was nothing he could do. There's nothing he could do. And it was horrible to watch it. And flip it around. If you're the one with Lyme, flip that around and think how horrible that would be to have that person going through that. So I'm so excited that you guys are doing that. That is a fantastic thing. So find those cheerleaders. Those cheerleaders are important. If you need a cheerleader, you call me. I will be a cheerleader. If you have no one else, you reach out to me. Take my card. I'm a really good cheerleader. So, because I know how important that is. And that's where those support groups come in. They're fantastic. Like I said, when you walk in that room and you meet people that you don't have to explain yourself to and you are understood. That is powerful. That is a powerful step in taking your power back. It's powerful to just go to those meetings and support people. Even if you're having a good day, don't stay home. Go to the meeting, because there's somebody at that meeting who needs to hear that you're having a good day, because they're having a crappy day. And they need to hear that good days are coming. They're coming. Okay, they're coming, and they need to hear that. So if you're better and you're having a good day, go to the meeting. Reach out to somebody who you think might not be having a good day, because that's really important. All right. I always say, too, make a plan for hard days. You're going to have hard days, so have a plan. Okay? What are you going to do when the day is hard? Because you're going to have hard days. You're going to have days where you're laying in that love sack and the tears are hurting so bad, they're just coming down. That's going to happen. That will probably happen. What feeds you? Okay, what makes you feel better? What is it? Is it being around people? Is it, drinking a hot cup of tea? Is it soaking in a hot Epsom salt bath? Is it, whatever it is that feeds you? Is it reading a good book? Is it going to church? Is it going to a sports game? Is it whatever it is? Whatever lifts you up, have a plan that day. This is what I'm going to do. It's a full moon coming, so I need a plan for a bad day. Those full moons can be a pain, a real pain, literally. So make a plan for hard days. I always say that is so important, because then when you have those hard days, you're not caught unaware and you're not hit by that horribleness without a plan. You know, have a plan. You have somebody you can call. Call one of those cheerleaders and be like, hey, I'm having a rough day. Are you having a rough day? Sometimes it helps us to share misery with each other too. Like, you know what, this really sucks. Yeah, it does. And then you can laugh about it and you feel a little bit better. So have a plan and hang in there. That's probably one of the most annoying things that I'm known for in my support group, is just when there's nothing else I can say, you guys, and there's a lot of times where there's nothing else I can say. And I wish there was more than I could do than just that. But some days all I can do is say, hang on. Don't quit. Please just hang on. So when you're having those hard days, and when those hard days turn into a week, and it might happen, hang on. Hang on. Grab onto that support group and grab onto that rope and you hang on tight. And I say it a million times. I say it over and over again. And I'll say it as long as I ever have to. Because if I wouldn't have hung on, then I wouldn't have gotten here. I wouldn't have gotten here. All right, know your limits. We don't like to accept our limits at all. In fact, I just did a speech in front of a group of medical people, which was really scary but fun once I got going. It was the first time I've ever spoken in front of a group. It was nurses, a group of nurses, and they invited me to come and talk to them about Lyme, which was a huge, huge thing, huge victory. I say that, it's a victory. And I talked to them about thinking outside the box. And I have these over here. You can each take one if you want. Put it on your refrigerator or on your bedpost if you need to. I put things I want to know in my mirror. I write it in lipstick on my mirror when I need it. This says, think outside the box. And so I talked to them. I had this blown up into a big thing because I feel like that's really what the medical field needs to do, is think outside the box. But we as Lymies, we have to think outside the box too. And that's kind of what I talked about when I was talking about accept that your life is going to be a little different. We have a box that's our life, and when we have Lyme, we're forced to think outside that box. We don't like to do that. We don't like to say, no, I can't do that today, or I just can't do that today. It's too much for me. We don't like to do that. We will do it, and then we'll suffer for it. So I say, know your limits. If you can control what is going on in that environment, then do it. If you can't, then control what you can. So I just had this conversation today with one of my people, and he's a farmer. He's farming right now, and they're back in the fields because the ground's frozen now, finally, and they're out combining. He's going crazy trying to get his farming done, and he's just miserable. He is miserable to the core, physically and mentally. And he's like, I can't control this, Aimee. I can't not do my farming. I have to do it. And I said, I get it. But you can control what you're giving your body, and you can control how much food you're putting in your body, what you're putting in your body. You can control your vitamins you're taking. You can control the water you're drinking. You can control the breaks you take during the day. You can put your feet up a little bit more in the tractor. You can control some of those things. So he knew his limits. He knew he was pushing his limits, but he was forgetting some of the things that he can control. And so do that. Think outside the box. We have to do that in our treatment. We have to do that in our lives. We have to accept that this box looks a little different than it used to look. And that's okay. Go outside the box for the win. Do it. Do it. Reach outside the box for the win. It's important. All right. I'll also, and what goes along with that is be your own friend. Be your own advocate. Don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to say, I really wish I could go out tonight, but I can't. I was up on my feet all day and I do need to rest tonight. And that's boring and lame, and that's not in my box. That used to be my box. This is my new box now, and it looks a little different for a while. But I'll be back to going out, but tonight I have to stay home. So be brave enough to be your own friend and be your own advocate. Believe in a cure, you guys. That's a huge thing. And as we talked about before, if you can't believe in a cure and you only can believe in remission, then believe in remission. But I will say this. If I would have gone through my treatment only hoping for remission, that is what I would have found. I would not have been brave enough to push through those hard days. And I would not have been brave enough to do some of the things I did if I would have only hoped for remission. If I did not believe that I would kill it and that I could beat it, I would not have beat it. I know I wouldn't have. I know I wouldn't have. So whatever it is that you choose to believe in, do it, and do it passionately. Do not stop. Do not settle for something that is not what you want. keep fighting and have that mindset that you can overcome this. You will not let this control you, not for another second of your life. That will help you. It will help you. The 3 B's. I say, remember the 3 B's. Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and be positive. It is not easy to be patient with yourself, is it? It's not. When you're struggling through this, it's not easy. But it's important. Is it easy to get frustrated? It's really easy to be frustrated and negative. I used to get so mad. I hate this. I hate it. I hate what it's doing to me. And so many people hate what they've become. I can't take care of my family right now. I can't go to work right now. I hate this. I hate it. But it's hard. But be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself, because that matters. It matters in your treatment. It matters in your mindset. Your mindset is a huge part of your healing. And I have learned this not just through myself, but I see it over and over again. Those people who refuse to get stuck there do better. The ones who get stuck there struggle much more. And there is power in that. That is one of the things that you can control. And one of my favorite sayings is, and it's up in my bedroom, it says, life is not about waiting out the storm. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And I believe that. That's very true. However, it is okay to say dancing in the rain sucks. Like, that's okay. You're going to have days where you're going to be like, I hate dancing in the rain. It makes my jeans shrink and they get tight. And I get like the rubbing, I hate that. My hair, it gets all fuzzy and disgusting, and my makeup runs down my face and wet everything. It's horrible. Nobody likes to dance in the rain. We don't want to dance in the rain, right? But we do have to dance in the rain. We get really good at dancing in the rain. So if you are having a day where you hate dancing in the rain, have that day. Hate it. Hate it. But don't get stuck there. Okay? Don't get stuck there. The next day is a new day. It's another day. It's another fighting day. So don't get stuck in hating being in the rain, because it's not always fun to dance in the rain, but sometimes it is fun to dance in the rain. I will say that. Okay, so remember your victories. That's a huge thing. As I was talking about before, when I would talk to my body, that was a huge thing. I got to the point where I was really just frustrated. I just hated this. I just wanted this over. And it became hard to focus on the victories. But do focus on the victories. If you don't see your victories, ask somebody that you're close to. And be like, do you notice a difference? Do you notice a difference for me than you did 6 months ago? And they'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, you have so much more energy than you used to have. Look at you, you went for a walk. You never go for walks. You go for walks forever. You're going for walks now. And you smiled 14 times yesterday. You never used to smile. Those are things that we don't see. You don't always see when you're in the thick of it. In fact, one of the best things that my doctor said, who's not a Lyme doctor, but she was my regular doctor, that said, don't give up. When I finally had my Lyme diagnosis, she said, journal what's going on with you. That's going to be a huge thing, because she's like, have a medical journal and just write down your symptoms, even if it's just a few minutes every day. And then when you're having those days where you feel like you're not getting better, go back and read. And I did that. And that was powerful for me, because you do have those days where you're like, my gosh, this has been going on for 18 months and I still feel like crap and I hate this. And then I would turn back in my journal and be like, well, I mean, I feel like crap today, but I don't feel like crap like I did back here. And this is way better than way back here. That is powerful, and you don't always see it. So remember it. If you're having those days and you can't see it, do some checking. Do some self-checking. Be like, well, you know what? Today I folded laundry. I mean, that seems like a silly thing, but you know what? 6 months ago I couldn't fold laundry. And so we'll take laundry as a victory, right? We'll take folded laundry as a victory any day. But my husband was good at that. He used to say to me, Amy, look at you. You did this. You couldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that a month ago. Or look at this. You're doing this and you couldn't have done that. We still do it. We still do it when I'm like, if we go hiking in the mountains or something, he's like, you couldn't have done that. You definitely couldn't have done that. And I still find myself doing that. Wow, I couldn't have done this 5 years ago. I couldn't have done that. So remember those victories. They're important. They feed you. They feed you when you're going through those hard times. Remember those victories, because they feed you. All right. I'm trying to make sure I didn't forget anything. I don't think I did. Victories are huge. And I'm not here to be a Lyme Pollyanna, you guys. I know how hard Lyme was. I know how hard it is. I went through it. I went through it for 2 long years of treatment. and 5 long years of being undiagnosed. But I'm here today to yell victory because I want everybody to know that there is victory, that there's hope, there's absolutely hope. There's always something to be hopeful for. I wouldn't have survived my treatment, I don't think, and my disease without all the things that I just talked about. And you can survive too. And you can do more than survive, you can thrive. You really can. Lyme treatment is hard for sure. It's difficult, diets are hard. Just how you feel is hard. The things you can't do are difficult. There's things you can do and there's things you can control. And you can thrive in your Lyme treatment if you have the right things on your side, if you have the right doctors, the right treatments, the right support group around you. You will still have a hard treatment and a hard time, but you will thrive. You will do better. And there is hope. There's always, always something to be hopeful for. And that's the message that I want to leave with you here today. So thank you for having me.